Well, Megan, we're back today. I think Paul Zielenski was on a podcast almost a year ago talking about New Balance, and we're back again with Paul Zielenski. Paul, can you give me your title and everything? Because that is something I can never remember. You guys have the weirdest titles at these shoe companies.
It's like a lot of corporate, you know? People have put in words to make me feel more important than I actually am. I am a senior product manager for performance running in our global performance running department.
Yeah, it's the second part that they always, like, why do you have to add that? The global running what is it?
Yeah, because I make shoes for the entire globe, not just for North America or just for Europe specifically, but there are runners all over the globe.
And you make shoes for them?
Well, we have a big group of people that make shoes. I just product manage them.
So wait a second. If I'm in Germany,
yeah,
you may have made shoes.
You guys were just in Germany.
I was. If I saw New Balance on someone's feet, you may have been responsible for that?
May or may not have been.
Okay, if I go to London and I see New Balance on someone's feet, still global.
It's also possible.
South America?
Also possible.
Okay. So you're worldwide. You're like the pit bull of running.
Paul Zielenski worldwide, yeah. Yeah. I would like a really nice call out though, like Pitbull does, where he says his name really loud. I don't have the voice to do that.
Do you want to start this podcast over and you can do your entrance?
No, I'll leave that to the experts and the professionals.
So Meg, we know about Fresh Foam. I thought Paul was going to say he's global for Fresh Foam. It's not Fresh Foam?
Okay, wait, but before we dive into, so today a lot of our talk is going to be about the 1080 because we're here in Chicago and that's the launch of this shoe.
Yeah, brand new Fresh Max 1080 V14.
But, wow, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
You're used to saying long things after his title.
Yeah.
That's his short name.
True. If anyone wants to get to know you, we did an episode 161 where we talked about shoes for sure, but I'd also gave a little bit more about your background. So if people are interested and didn't listen to that one already, go back and do that. But anyway, yeah, now we can talk about
the Zielinski effect.
Yeah.
So nice you had me back twice.
Yeah. There's not that many guests that have been on twice. In
really?
fact, Kira D'Amato's one.
Kira's been on 3 times.
Yeah, maybe even 4. And there's a handful more. But yeah, so you're a big deal.
Rarefied air. Wow,
yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's...
Can I dive right into okay. One thing that I think is confusing for the consumer that we talked about with other companies when we have them on is foam formulation.
Sure.
And I like to think of it as, and I said this in a review I was doing recently, that it's kind of like a cake. They all have the same ingredients, but it's how much you put in there. So when I look at a Fresh Foam shoe, or even FuelCell from you guys, from one shoe to the other, it's not the exact same formulation of the foam. Is Fresh Foam sort of a proprietary, how we describe a feeling more than a chemical makeup? How's that work?
We often talk about Fresh Foam as a platform of experience that's generally housing a lot of our everyday running product, like the 1080 that we're talking about here today. To your point, there are foams or shoes or materials that we might use where they have different ingredients. And in the case of Fresh Foam X, we do have 2 different, let's call it, ingredients that we might use in 2 different shoes. The 880, for example, and the 1080. They are 2 slightly different variations of Fresh Foam X. What connects the two, or what connects those 2 shoes together, is the fact that those shoes do deliver on an end experience for the runner, one that is comfortable, perfect for everyday miles. In the case of the 1080, it's just slightly softer than what we use in the 880, knowing that consumers might choose that because they might like something that's a little bit softer, or in 880 they might like something that's a little bit firmer underfoot.
Okay, so that's interesting to me because, Meg, I don't know about you, but do you consider the 880 kind of like a step down? I always thought the 880 was the entry level 1080, and then the 1080 was going to give you, there you go, right up her foot. You feel this
a little bit, I don't know.
We've been walking around Chicago today, trust me. But is the 880 not a step down, or it's just a different experience?
Correct, yeah, that's how we look at it. We look at solving problems for runners through our shoes, and each one of our shoes should be solving a different problem or providing a different experience. We don't necessarily want to say that one shoe is worse or better. It's more about what experience do you prefer underfoot. Maybe that's the 880 if you want something that feels a little bit firmer, a little bit closer to the ground. Or do you like something in the case of the 1080 that provides a really signature kind of premium soft experience?
All right, so you are going to go to work on Monday, probably.
Yep, I am.
Okay. You're going to go in and...
Wait, does today count as work? Does this work?
This
Yeah,
doesn't
this is
work.
work.
I'm in the most beautiful city in the world. I love Chicago more than anything, to the point where I get made fun of by how much I love Chicago.
I love Chicago
What
too.
do you love about it?
What do I love? Look at this view behind us here.
We happen to be in a sweet spot.
We're 28 floors up. I'm looking at Lake Michigan over here on my left. I see the Adler Planetarium down over there, Shed Aquarium, the Field Museum, and behind us we got the skyline. Can't beat it.
So this is better than Boston?
Listen, I will no comment that, but I do love Chicago a lot.
All right, so back to the shoe.
Back to your question.
You get to work on Monday, and you're gonna lay out a shoe. You get a brief for a shoe, or are you the one creating?
I do create the briefs, yes.
Okay, so you creating a brief, and you're like, okay, I know right now I'm seeing a trend in runners that want X.
Sure.
How does that break down? How do you go about finding the space? Because right now we look at some of the shoe lines, and I think every company is a little bit guilty of this right now, where the amount of product that you're putting out there, there's some overlap and some nuance, and it's just like, okay, how does a consumer determine what's going to be best for them if they can't, like, say that you don't have a retail store near you, you can't get in and try every shoe. How do I navigate my way through the New Balance line?
If we are not clearly communicating the type of experience that you would have in one of our shoes, then I don't feel as if though I've done my job. It should be really clear in both the way that we talk about the shoe, the way we describe the shoe, a lot of cases the way the shoe looks too. I think there's something about
Visual clues,
exactly, that really matter in the design and development process. It is our goal to make sure that each shoe that we make has a really clear point of differentiation, so that, to your point, when a consumer says, love what New Balance is doing, they have incredible product, they have incredible athletes who are performing in their product, or I know their brand for craftsmanship and quality, they say, I know exactly what I want to buy based on what I like, or I have an opportunity to try on a shoe that might fit what I know that I love. If we have overlap in our line, then we haven't necessarily done our job either. And yes, there will always be a little bit of overlap here or there, right? Like, you and I always talk about the FuelCell Rebel, and I think the way you use FuelCell Rebel is a little different than how I use it. And that's amazing. That shows the versatility of that product.
how do you use it?
I use it in workouts and like fartleks and long runs and stuff, where I know you love it as more of a everyday type running shoe.
For me, that shoe works really well as that tweener shoe.
Yeah.
So if I go out for a run and I don't know how I feel that day, but maybe I want to pick it up. I don't have a workout, but maybe I'm like, okay, today I feel pretty good. I'm going to go out. I know the shoe can handle a variety of paces, so it can handle an easy run. But if I decide to turn that easy run into more of an effort, maybe a tempo run, I know the shoe can come with me. So that's why I like that shoe. And that one's in the FuelCell line.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the 1080, because the 1080 is the one that you're launching right now. And it's a shoe that's been around for a while. It's 14 iterations right now. I'm guessing the brief looks pretty similar year after year. When you sit down and you work with the designers and your team, what is this shoe trying to achieve?
At the very beginning, what the 1080 needs to solve for us is providing the best, most signature running experience for everyday miles every day. I used every day twice there for a very particular reason, because
Twice a day.
Yeah, for your doubles, because we believe that this is the best everyday running shoe that we make. And if it's not doing that, and a consumer who might have been with us for any one of those other previous 13 versions picks this up and it's not solving that for them, then we probably have deviated too far. But what that also means, though, is that we can continue to elevate that or find new ways to solve that problem. And in the case of version 14 here, we felt as if though we had the bones of a really amazing running product starting with version 13, that we only really needed to make some updates to help shore up a few things that we had heard from runners and consumers that we weren't necessarily doing a great job.
What were some of those things?
So when we talk about it being an everyday running shoe, we know that people are spending a considerable amount of time in this product. They're running long runs in it, they're running every day, they are running their doubles if they're getting the miles in, and it wasn't providing necessarily the security or stability underfoot that maybe they expected from that shoe when we were telling them to run every day in this. So we just shored up a little bit of that in this shoe.
So you felt like the previous version, and this is a personal taste for most people, so,
Sure.
but like the 13, maybe a little, when you say not as stable, the foam was a little bit less tuned? It was a little softer? Or what was causing that?
Not necessarily. So this is a really great example of the foams are actually the same from version 13 to version 14. This is a lightweight foam that has a considerable amount of cushion underfoot due to its hardness. But we can change and work through the base form or the actual like underfoot platform to change the experience in a way that tunes it much better to help solve that problem. So the example here is we didn't really change a lot of the like underfoot specs. The stack height is the same as the last one. The foam is the same as the last one, but we made the sidewalls or the parts that you're actually seeing just a little bit more vertical as opposed to more rounded, especially at the bottom of the shoe, which just helps stabilize the platform a little bit. So it's about some of those like small little tweaks to the actual like base of the shoe that actually helped provide a better experience while we're keeping a lot of the ingredients actually the same from the previous version.
So not changing the foam, just the geometries really is what changed, because I feel like this feels a little different than version 13. Mm-hmm. And so that's just strictly because of the geometries that changed underfoot. Yeah,
absolutely. And a little bit different outsole configuration as well. But what's important about the outsole configuration that we wanted to keep from the previous version is that it has a very like north to south orientation or vertical orientation as opposed to horizontal, because we wanted to provide like a really smooth transition, and having the outsole work in like harmony with the foot vertically allows for like a really smooth toe off.
And do you guys see, because I feel like one of the comments we get a lot is like, I love max stack shoes and I always want more underfoot, but it seems like at least from our audience that there's a little bit of a backlash towards that, where people want less stack and they want more of that like low to the ground feel. Is that something you guys hear or see, or are we going to see max cushion for the future?
I think it depends on how you define max cushion, okay. Right? And like I don't want to like say yes or no, because I don't think there's necessarily a straight answer to that. But that's why we do make multiple shoes in the ranges, to say for those that are enjoying an experience, like you said, for like yourself, we need to make sure we have a shoe that's solving that. Well, also an 880 is a slightly lower stacked shoe with a slightly firmer foam to it. So maybe that's the best option for those that are maybe going that route.
Do you feel like sometimes when we hear that it's just contrarians, that it's not like if it, I feel like there's some nostalgia sometimes for, oh, everything's gotten so max cushed. I think if the foam works, it doesn't matter what the stack is. And I think that if you take those people that are complaining, you give them back like a lower stack, firmer shoe, they're going to be like, hey, this doesn't feel so great.
Yeah.
I think what it is though too, and I think this is a benefit of what's, I would say, like the openness of the industry over the last like 7 or 8 years, is that I think often we're comparing or judging shoes based on like specifications so much as opposed to experiences within the shoe. And the specs lead to the experience, but I often talked about like leading with the experience, then the specs help solve that. And I think often if we're just looking at 43 versus 42 or 43 versus 30 or whatever the number might be, it sometimes misses what actually is happening underfoot, no matter what.
So it's not just a number, it's all the ways that you, like in this case, the geometries change the way that that's going to feel underfoot. Now, I look at some of your shoes, and the 880 is a lower price point than the 1080. Mm-hmm. And I look at just the construction. I'm looking at the upper here that's in front of us. It's got a really nice engineered mesh, and it looks elevated. Mm-hmm. And it looks like something that, hey, you're going to charge a little bit more for. And how difficult is it when you're making like spec sheets or briefs for a shoe, trying to balance the economics mm-hmm. with still providing the best quality that you can?
Absolutely. I think that's where the brief really comes into play. It's essentially a lot of times me writing like some non-negotiables in terms of what we're trying to solve for. Sometimes there are a lot of things that we're negotiating along the way. Often we do have to consider price along that when we're building the product at the same time. In the case of the 1080 here, we really don't spare any expense when it comes to the materials that we're choosing. But I think most importantly is that the materials that we're choosing are matching against what we believe to be this runner's expectation of what comfortable product can feel like, both underfoot and in the upper as well. I think part of what you said there, Thomas, is really key, is like the upper really does show that too. And that's whether you're walking into a retailer and seeing it on the wall from 10 or 15 feet away, or you're on video and you're touching this nice kind of triple jacquard material.
Triple jacquard.
Or if you're on
what does that, can you explain, what does that mean?
Yeah, it means there's 3 layers of mesh essentially.
What's jacquard?
It's like a type of material. It's like a really soft hand of material.
See, and I would have said jacquard was the way it's woven.
I Googled it, and that's what it told me one time, but I still don't understand.
We're saying the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
I like Jean-Luc Picard is my favorite.
You have to get a really expensive license to be able to call your mesh that.
All right, Meg, what are some non-negotiables? If you were going to write a brief for a shoe, what would be some non-negotiables that you'd put in there?
Obviously, it's got to be 40 millimeters in the heel.
Yes.
That's the starting. It can go
it's
up
actually
from
the
there.
first page of the PowerPoint slide is just 40.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk about another shoe in the Fresh Foam line that I'm very confused about?
Okay.
Do you know what I'm going to say?
I have a guess, but I'm going to let you. No, I want you to go there with it.
The Balos.
Okay. Talk to me about it.
Why?
Why? How? When?
Future.
So help me here. What?
Okay. So because I'm looking at the 1080.
Yeah.
And it's a great shoe. Like, it's great, easy running, miles. You can do long run in it, like you were saying. Like, it's just great, everyday, easy running. The Balos, to me, feels fairly similar in what use case I would use it for.
So you're saying this could be a redundant?
Yeah.
Okay.
But obviously, there's a difference. There's a big price point difference. And so what is the intent? I guess, what was the brief on that one?
I think for Balos, the way that we position that product is essentially bringing like an elevated material into an everyday training shoe. So that Fresh Foam X or that Balos delivers on a material that has a PIBA blend with EVA. So we believe by adding that kind of PIBA blend into an everyday training shoe that we're elevating and essentially creating what I'll call like 1080 plus. If you want a higher level of technology with an additive that you find in some of our racing products, some of our everyday products such as Rebel, in PIBA with an EVA blend, that then maybe you would want this in an everyday training shoe as well. What's really key about that too, and I know because you like to train in the Rebel, then the question becomes, well, then how is Rebel different versus this, right? And this is where some of those like geometries and base forms really start to come into play, where we are creating a little bit of a wider base for an everyday training shoe. The heel is just slightly wider than it is in the Rebel for an everyday training shoe. It's a little bit heavier than the Rebel is as well. The upper has a little bit more creature comforts in it, whether it's like a padded heel tab or a knit tongue that lays really nicely around the foot. So it's about a really like elevated premium everyday training experience that sits then above if you want to go kind of the next level above what a 1080 is providing. I
will say, like, just the step-in feel alone, like it feels like a premium trainer. So I definitely get that. I just think like the 1080 is great.
Without a doubt.
Maybe I just don't need premium trainers. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much of a review on the Balos, but like for me, I think the 1080 hits the spot for what I would use the Balos for, and I do think the Rebel, if you want to get that that PIBA mix foam, I know that FuelCell and Fresh Foam are two different divisions, but the FuelCell Rebel, you're right. That's probably one of my favorite New Balance shoes.
No doubt.
I think it's the sexiest shoe.
Looks fantastic.
Elite, I think, wins in that category.
I mean, you're talking about two shoes that are really nicely close. You know, they look very similar to each other, and they're freaking awesome underfoot.
The FuelCell line in this year, I feel like the aesthetics, you guys crushed it.
Yeah.
Those look great. But so while we're talking about Fresh
what's
Foam,
funny? You talk about, before you go there, people will complain about anything. I think the FuelCell looks amazing, and then we'll do a review and people are like, I can't tell the difference between these shoes, and they look too much similar. I'm like, yeah, but it's a family of shoes. It's like, if you go, like, I hate to compare it to cars, but if you go into a dealership and you look at, like,
trim levels.
There's like, this is the S, the L, the, whatever. And I think I would agree. I really like the FuelCell line, the geometry, everything like that. They did a great job with it. I guess what's your favorite? Can you say a favorite? Is it allowed?
Is it allowed? Of course it's allowed.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between what we work on and what I personally run in, right? I find that I run in the 1080 about 4 to 5 days a week because that's what I love feeling underfoot. 1080 V13 was something that was just like revelatory for me in terms of like feeling better after my runs, feeling better during my runs. It had like the right level of protection, and the comfort on the upper was just like an unbelievable fit. So I run in the 1080 for almost all my runs, and then
I mean, I can tell you, we saw you running along the lake here, Michigan.
Yeah.
And you did have 1080 V14s on.
I was rolling in them. Yes, yeah. Just chugging along.
It was kind of moving.
No, I'm just trying to get back at it. And it's hard not to when you're on the lakefront. There's so many runners that are going right now.
Do you count the New Balance shoes as you run by?
Only in my head.
Okay.
If I counted them out loud, people would think I'm crazy.
I was saying we were running along the water, and I was like, I wish there was like a way to have like a shoe counter of.
You just gotta have to get one of those like old lap
Okay,
counters
I'm
and
not,
just
no. Okay. We're gonna not do that. Okay, but we keep talking about the Fresh Foam line and the FuelCell line, but can you just give us like a real high level, like what's the difference? What are those lines?
What's the intention?
Yeah, what's the intention? Of course, yeah. So I think those are two, again, different experiences that we're providing underfoot. In Fresh Foam X, we often talk about providing like comfort in everyday running. In FuelCell, we talk often about providing really energetic experiences in everyday running or racing, knowing that FuelCell also houses much of our racing line, both on the road and on the track and on the trail as well. So it's really about providing like super high energy performance returns for the FuelCell range, and then like comfortable everyday running product on the Fresh Foam X side of things.
So for an example, you may not want to drive your Porsche every day because it would get beat up by potholes and everything like that, but you can get a Volkswagen or an Audi that's comfortable and does the job for your weekly runs, and then you yank out the sports car for those Sunday drives, right?
And then to your point, Meg, like once you start bringing in shoes like Balos, you start to cross the lines between the two a little bit, where you're bringing some of those energetic ideas into an everyday training shoe. And so it really is, it's kind of a way for us to communicate different experiences underfoot, house kind of two different unique ranges of product, but most importantly, they're all solving something that's like very specific along the way.
Can we go into the future? Are you ready to go to the future?
I love
the future.
Okay, so right now the trend that I'm noticing is that the foams that were developed maybe in the premium race day shoes, as we develop new foams and new formulations, they're kind of trickling down into the daily trainer. And I'm kind of seeing certain types of foam kind of age out. And I'm going to say, in the future, are you seeing the same trend where you're going to be, I noticed that you moved a Piba foam into one of the Fresh Foam shoes.
Balance, yeah.
And then you've got some Piba mixes, and then you have some straight Piba. Are all the shoes a variation of Piba mixes, or is there one that's like straight up?
No, not all of them, no. We do use some compression EVA materials. But I think what's really interesting is it's not necessarily about what's better or worse, or just because they're different, or because there's been kind of branded names or some like jargon that's been attached to them. It's about the best materials to solve the problem. And I think especially in the case, 1080 is a really good example of this, is it's a compression EVA midsole that is absolutely fantastic and one of the best midsole materials we've ever had within our running product range. It's a balance of like soft but lightweight at the same time. And so it's not necessarily about saying that this is better than or worse than what we're using in Rebel. It's just kind of two different ways of solving two different unique problems. To your point though, like what we use in Supercomp Elite V4 or in our track spikes or in Supercomp Pacer, like, that is the best of the best. That is our highest energy return for race day experiences, and we want to make sure that our athletes and those who want to choose to wear that shoe on race day, such as on Sunday here, is that you're getting the best from us, and so that's why we house them into those race shoes. I don't know if it's necessarily about aging out or aging in, but making sure that we are evolving our technologies to match with what the consumer is expecting from the underfoot experience.
I guess where I'm coming from is the weight that you get from these new foams and the energy return seems to be something that is trickling down into the daily trainer zone. So that's not necessarily aging out or aging in, but like bringing that. Like, here's the thing: like I'll run in, we're able to run in all the shoes, and we run in, you know, an elite. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to go back necessarily to...
It's a cheat code, right?
Yeah. And so I feel like some of the brands are bringing that feeling and the weight into their daily trainers. And that seems to be something that's pushing into the future. I mean, the foams, until there's another breakthrough, this is where we are with foams. Mm-hmm. What else is making up the shoe to kind of take it to the next level?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good point, right? I think what those foams have taught us is that they're really awesome running experiences, and people want really awesome running experiences. So how can we bring that into product that maybe they're wearing more often than they're wearing Elite? Maybe they're wearing Elite every day, and you know, that's awesome. Hell yeah.
I mean,
that'd be my preference.
Yeah, right.
Just race shoes every day.
I mean, it does meet your criteria, 40 millimeters.
Right.
So.
Yeah, checking boxes. Okay, you have giant feet and you can't wear test.
Correct.
So
generally speaking. Yeah.
So when do you get the shoes that you've briefed or whatever?
Yeah.
And what happens if you don't like them but everyone else does?
Well, so we kind of have an adage in the way that we talk about and build shoes is that we are not the consumer, even though we are consumers. Like, it's not about me when it comes to liking or not liking. It's about bringing like my expertise, feel, and eye to putting something on and making sure that it's solving what we're trying to solve for. So it's not necessarily like a like or dislike, because I have my own personal preferences.
But that has to create some sort of like bias in your head of what's a good shoe and what isn't.
Yeah, you know, you're hitting on what is one of the most challenging things about product management, right? Is bias, and confirmation bias or recency bias or personal bias. And
like if you were Megan making shoes, everything, you'd have one shoe.
Plates and everything.
high stag, plates and everything.
Well, then we got to put you in the hot seat, and then we're going to grill you as to those decisions.
Why does your company only have one shoe?
That's all you need.
It is the hardest thing, because you're right. Like we have to make sure we're not bringing those biases into the way we're making decisions. It's not perfect always, and if anybody says that it is, they're probably lying or they're the best at their job. But that being said, from a timeline standpoint, so we generally are sample size through many of our rounds, and then we'll go and open up what's called extreme sizes, and that is still usually about 6 to 8 months prior to the release of a product. And that is our opportunity to test the grading of larger and smaller and wider sizes. It's an opportunity for us to make sure that the uppers are fitting correctly in different sizes than just men's 9.5 or women's 7. It's our opportunity to get more feet in the shoe and get additional wear testing done on the product. And so that allows us just to capture more data and make sure that once we're going larger, smaller, or wider, that nothing's getting out of whack. Because you gotta, imagine you've got a lot of different things happening, and then once we approve that round, that's when we'll go out to full size runs and then get closer and closer to the day, such as yesterday when 1080 V14 launched.
Yeah, so at what point can you no longer make changes?
If anyone in development is listening right now, they're screaming at me, telling me, don't make changes past a certain date. We can always make changes, but it always affects the timeline.
Inline changes?
No. Very rarely, if ever, if pretty much never.
Okay.
So yeah, the idea is that we essentially try to bake the shoe, 8 months prior to intro day or so. But there are cases where we get to extremes and we're like, wow, like this is something that we really need, is going to impact the way people wear or experience this product. And yeah, we do have to make changes here today. The idea is that we don't have to.
So today you were wearing the 1080 V14 when we saw you out along the lake. But I know how you guys work. You've probably already got the 16 molded up and ready to go. Are you running
16 or we're already 2 ahead, huh?
Okay, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to jump. Are you wearing that product now and testing the next iteration already? Like what's going on behind the scenes at New Balance with the 1080?
We typically spend about 24 months building our product.
Jeez.
And so what that allows for us to do is bring multiple rounds of testing and prototyping, whether it's in upper materials and fit and choices, midsole materials and design choices, geometries. We talked a lot about geometries today. That allows for us to do a lot of wear testing, a lot of dynamic wear testing within our own product, and get a lot of feet in the shoes that helps inform the way that we end up making the final version. So 24 months allows for us to have 2 or 3 different rounds of prototyping before we get to the final version of the midsole that you see here. So we are deep in the throes of 2026 right now as a team, and we're very excited about what that means for us from a product standpoint. We've got some bangers that are really set up for the year, and we've been working on those for quite some time. So, ideally at some point we'll be getting on my 3rd appearance of this podcast to talk about those updates.
I kind of gave you a hard time on the Ballos, but
we're friends here.
Yeah. But that type of shoe where it's the first iteration, and like where does the idea start? Like who is like, we need a new shoe, or does someone feel like it's not like there's a lack in like the line, but maybe there's this new technology or whatever it is? Like what starts a brand new shoe?
Identifying the white space first. So identifying the white space, and that starts with identifying who the consumer is and how are they using that product. And so often we will be handed new innovation, materials, or technologies, or shoes, but those have largely been agreed upon from briefs because we've identified a white space that we want to try and solve. And then it's up to us to decide how we want to use it. It's very hard to bring a version 1 to market.
Yeah.
Not a lot of awareness. It takes a lot of time to communicate what you're looking to solve with a version 1 on a product.
Get it on the wall.
You got to get it on the wall. You got to tell people what it's doing and why they should spend their time with that product if they've been happy with what they've been wearing. Which makes it even more paramount that shoe has been vetted and that opportunity has been vetted along the way. And this industry has a ton of examples where that has absolutely flipped the industry on its head and changed the way that we build shoes and think about product. And there have been flops along the way as well. But you're in your head, you're like, yeah, that one, that one.
Which one?
Yeah, I tried that one.
Well, real quick on this. So when there is a flop,
yeah,
because
we don't make flops, so I don't know what this is about.
Okay, when there's a shoe that maybe doesn't hit the expectation commercially that you're hoping for, that shoe gets built, and like we already talked about, you may have already started building the next version of it. So it's pretty much guaranteed 2 rounds.
Sometimes.
Okay, you're going to answer this question then. So when do you know it's time to take it to the back shed and hit it over the head?
When do we know? I don't think there's a really specific answer to that necessarily. I think the other thing about version 1s is that you got to have a little bit of patience too. It's not you're not gonna know right away if it's the right thing or the wrong thing. The day a shoe comes out, you're not necessarily going to know how consumers are going to respond to that.
Or how they're going to use it. In some cases, maybe it's changed the way that maybe we thought differently and the consumer has decided that actually it fits over here for them.
So yeah, in some cases we are already down the road on a version 2 because we are very bullish, but I think in the other sense too, it's like, takes a little bit of a risk, takes a little bit of cojones for us to say here's a version 1. We feel really strongly about this product and the opportunity and what it's solving. We're going to sit on this and we're going to let the consumer kind of help tell us or guide us as to what it means to them.
Are we going to see any version 1s in 25 or 26?
Not ready to comment quite yet on that. We'll put it this way. We have really been focused on delivering a problem that we want to solve with each one of our shoes and identifying new problems that we want to solve. I think what's really fun about the team that I work on is that we kind of just build these books of questions, things we just want to get after, things we want to think about, things we want to solve for, working with our innovation partners, working with our inline team as well. And that could lead to some pretty exciting things over the course of the next 3 or 4 years.
I mean, we love getting surprises. So you do a lot of testing, a lot of athlete testing, a lot of just testing in general. I know somebody at this table who really loves running in plated shoes all the time. Have you guys, and I find that it almost gets demonized, there's people out there that's you can't do that, it's bad for you, this and that. Have you guys seen any research or anything that would give validity to people saying you shouldn't run in a plated shoe all the time, because I look back at shoes like the Mizuno Waves and stuff like that that have for years always had a plate. And a plate is just a way to stiffen the foam and create stability. Is it, and I mean, sooner or later, like technically the ground is a firm something that's going to move the foot forward. Is a plate technically causing problems for people, or like, do you have to ratchet it back, or couldn't you be like Megan and try to run on them every day?
I don't think I'm well qualified to answer that question. Being a political science major, I did not spend a ton of time doing biomechanics work or doing a lot of scientific work. I'm
sure somebody at the office though is a nerd.
So you guys have been to our sports research lab that's at the track, right?
True.
And we have all those individuals that are way smarter than me that are working on these, learning more about the question that you just asked, right? And I think what's really interesting is that just there isn't a ton of data to suggest one way or the other way quite yet. And I think what's really interesting is that we need to work with experts to help us identify what is the best thing for the runner when it comes to the shoes that we're making. I feel really good that the building that we have in Boston with in the sports research lab are solving a lot of those things, and that we are not necessarily going to bring a product out, because ultimately at the end of the day, runners just want to be healthy and they want to prevent injuries.
They want to continue running.
Correct. And so we're here to support their journey in that, and that's the most important thing for us.
Interesting that you bring up the sports lab. How tough is it for everybody to know at your at New Balance that the machine that squishes the shoe up and down is the most popular thing?
I was going to say the video that broke the internet.
Yeah, is more popular than anything else you guys have done.
Well, actually what we do is we just leave it running 24/7, and we just like bring people in, we ticket, and we just say, hey, $5 goes to a general fund. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. That
actually, I think people would line up for that.
Yeah, so it'll get the one Instagram post and 100,000 views.
That blew my mind when was that Boston Marathon a couple years ago?
That was the SC Elite as we were doing the Train to NYC. So we did a like a testing. We came in and did a sort of like a VO2 test for everybody and tried out the difference between wearing, I think it was the 880 or the 1080 versus the SC Elite.
Yeah.
And SC Elite is actually, I'd say, two of our favorite shoes from New Balance. One's the SC Elite. I see Megan strapping that on all the time. And then the Rebel is obviously one of my favorite shoes. Both shoes kind of came out almost in similar time frame. I think the Rebel's a little bit older.
A little bit, yeah.
And the Rebel was wild when it first came out. Very experimental. And then you guys...
I'm impressed you even remember V1.
Oh, I do. That was the first time I had to learn jacquard. It had a jacquard upper that was woven. It looked like somewhat like a African like tapestry.
It's like interwoven.
Yeah.
That shoe was really cool.
It was really cool. And that was the first one of your colleagues, Danny, put because I said I think I'd like
He'll appreciate you calling him one of my colleagues as he is my boss, so that's going to be perfect. I'm going to hold that over him for a while.
It's so hard to tell what the title's there.
His title is at least 10 times longer than mine.
You pay by the letter. But he put I said I think I like the Vazi upper better, so he actually made me a pair that I still treasure, and I actually thought it was really nice. And then you moved forward with the Rebel 2. That had an amazing look to it. An upper had a little bit of an issue with durability, but it just looked different than everything else. And I think that was kind of the precursor to kind of seeing some of these FuelCell designs go a little bit more edgy.
I think what was so great about Rebel V2 was that it was us identifying that people love to wear race day type foams in training environments. And you think that was like 2019 that shoe is out, I believe. And that was the same FuelCell foam that we used in SC Elite V3. SC Elite V3. And so you're bringing race day materials in a training environment, and think of how far the industry has come since 2019 and what we were thinking about doing at the time with that product.
Well, so you're talking about race day properties in a daily trainer, which feels like the SC trainer is exactly what that was for. Like that shoe felt like it was made for me. Like you're giving me a plate that I can wear every day.
Yes.
So what's the future of that shoe? Are we going to continue to see it?
I think what we believe is that there is a training environment for plated product and there's a racing environment for plated product. And that there are different things to solve for within those two different things. Obviously, if you're going out and running the Chicago Marathon this weekend, you want to put the fighter jet on your foot. You want to feel the fastest. It's going to have the lightest upper within that range, and it's going to have our very best performing race day foam. But we also know that you're not necessarily, as we've talked about, wanting to wear that every single day. And so there's some training things to consider when it comes to plated product. And we believe that's really kind of 2 or 3 different things. One is an upper experience. Like, we definitely built more comfort-driven ideas, whether it's base mesh or heel tab or tongue construction, things like that, just so that it feels more comfortable for everyday running. It is base form again. It's kind of having a little bit broader base nets and things so that the foot doesn't necessarily have to work as hard as it would if we were doing a tons of carve-ins or trying to remove weight out of the base form like we might in a race day shoe. And then also in the case of Supercom Trainer V3, it's a plate that's slightly different than what's in the race day shoe. So having something that is, in this case, forked to provide a little bit more flexibility while still getting the benefit of rigidity in a plate, especially in the forefoot. So we believe that there still is an opportunity to deliver kind of 2 different unique experiences. But I think what's so cool about Supercom Trainer, though, as you kind of talk about it, is that we know runners are going to want to choose to wear that for race day too, because they're on their feet for a long amount of time in marathons. And so we think it's this really nice connective tissue between racing and everyday running.
Okay, the 1080 is your shoe. Like, it's your brief, right?
It is. So Chris Morfessi, who's one of our other senior PMs of performance running globally, he managed this particular Fresh Foam X 1080 V14.
So what shoes are yours?
Oh, what shoes are mine? Well, it's a collective effort. So I don't claim any particular shoe because there's probably 9 or 10 people that work on each one of these projects. So we often get to...
Could we change the way that we're phrasing it then?
Please.
Which one are you gonna get in trouble for if it goes wrong?
There we go.
That's the thing about product management, right? Is that you don't get any of the credit, but you get all the blame.
Right.
No, I'm totally kidding.
Well, they say success has many fathers, where failure has one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's tough. I'm questioning my future now. Moving forward, and we have so many shoes within a range that we have so many like talented PMs that we kind of interchange a bit of what we work on here and there. But between Chris and myself, we really are focused on the everyday running bucket of stuff. So whether it is 1080s or 880s, 860s, if you're looking for a stability experience, that also houses Rebels and Trainers and Baloses. So you'll see a lot of my hand on the everyday running products, including Moors and shoes like that as well.
We didn't even talk about the Moor.
Yeah.
Talk about all that stack.
Yes.
Okay, but wait, are you not a little bit jealous of the people working on the race day shoes? Like, that stuff's kind of crazy fun, I would assume.
Absolutely. I mean, where I really fell in love with this sport was both like me competing as an individual, running in middle school and high school and in college. But I fell so much in love with this sport in terms of races and watching the Olympics and US championships and major marathons. And so the ability to work with athletes is something I think is just like so treasured within our company. We have some of the most amazing people that run with the New Balance on their chest, and being able to help them perform their very best is something that I think we all take a lot of pride in, knowing that we can help them just a little bit. But if you also, think about that, yes, the race day stuff is super fun because you get, no handcuffs, really just about building the very best. And then also keep in mind though, our runners are wearing this product for 90% of their time too. So I do take some pride in knowing that we're helping them stay healthy and train at a really high level.
Okay, what's the most exciting thing for the future of New Balance running?
The most exciting thing about the future, I think what we're really excited about is communicating how our shoes can provide particular experiences. And I think what that's allowed us to do moving forward is really rethink the way that our shoes can solve problems, rethink about problems that we're trying to solve, and think about new problems that we want to solve.
We're gonna make some new problems.
Yeah, yeah, true. I guess we're not gonna like create those problems and then solve them, because that's kind of like a back-ended way into our, right?
I mean, I feel like the industry back in the early 2000s was that's what it was doing. You would have like all this posting and plastic and all these visible technologies on the shoe that were like, okay, we're gonna fix, something. But
what should we fix for you?
Could you anything that would make my legs go faster back and forth?
Yeah. You should do more strides.
I need wheelies.
They tell me strides are important, though I never do them.
All right, I have a question though that's more on the aesthetic side. So we see every once in a while, we've seen some District Vision collaborations. We've seen it, but on the lifestyle side for New Balance, you do a lot of collaboration shoes. You do a lot of signature shoes. Why isn't more of that trickling down into the run product? Because I think that it doesn't necessarily need to be a musician or even an athlete. It could just be other influences on the space that are bringing in, people to elevate the shoe's design or elevate.
Sydney's Rebel as like the best looking shoe.
Oh, that color was fantastic.
That's a colorway though. I'm thinking more like, the closest thing I can say is the District Vision shoes. You kind of like change some of the upper, and I've seen some Stone Harbor stuff where you've
Stone Island.
Yeah, I don't know.
Stone Harbor it's like a place in New Jersey, right?
Okay, that might be what I'm thinking of. Actually, it wouldn't be. Some clams. Clams, popcorn. Stone Island. You did a really nice job, and it's usually with the SC Elite and stuff like that, but I'd love to see some stuff trickle down into like the Daily Trainer stuff. I know that as a runner, and we're seeing this in run crews and trends like that people want to express themselves through their gear. No longer is it like, okay, like I know that you design for running retail where you like, okay, navy cells, gray cells, this, and here's our colors. And now people are like, I want the mint. I want a soft, they're starting to do that, but I'd love to see some of that collaboration. Is there anything that you guys are working on that we'll start seeing more personality driven footwear?
I think there's like two answers to that question. I think one, when you talk about a 1080, I think of the last version of 1080. Boy, we probably made 40 some odd colors or styles of that 1080 version.
And this is going to be the shoe that you guys are going to put the most out of variations, right?
In terms of like color?
Color, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. We definitely have a pretty broad range. And I think the reason why we have a broad range is exactly what you just described. Is not only do we believe that the 1080 is our most like signature running shoe. Obviously, we spend a lot of time communicating that to individuals, hoping that they try and experience the shoe. But we know that those needs or maybe those tastes for all those individuals are going to be different and unique. And so having a range of, like you say, the navy as you describe it, or colors that are very trend specific and on trend, and maybe they're unique or they're matching with what runners are wearing these days. Like we have an amazing kind of like trend and color design department that's keeping us on the front edge of what people are looking for. So I think like first and foremost, there is a color opportunity across however many styles on 1080 V14 that we might do over the course of this model's lifespan. And then secondly, to your point about finding key collaborators that we have like great harmony with, that are great partners, and that want to take and reimagine a shoe from us and say like, I'm gonna want to put my spin on that. What's an authentic partner within the running space that we might be able to do that with? As you described, we've done that with District Vision on a few different shoes over the course of the last few years. I think those are just like really awesome opportunities for us to inject energy into the market and bring a different visual or something unique at the same time.
Okay, my final question.
Dun, dun, dun.
Is the SC Elite V5 lighter than before?
Oh my gosh, it's not a question I am quite ready to answer.
I don't think you get, you're asking him to open the envelope.
I can't open the envelope yet.
Shake your head up and down.
I'm not quite ready to answer the question.
Once the camera stops, we'll find out for you. I will say for us, when we're talking to people and we get questions about, like somebody will be like, specific, I need this in a race day shoe, what shoe should I get? The one that falls in line for me for the SC Elite is it is a more accommodating shoe for more runners because it has a wider base, because it's a little more stable than some of the really lean race day shoes. And I just feel like it's one of those ones that you can run whether you're running a 4.5 hour marathon or you're running a 2 hour and 10 minute marathon. The shoe can kind of come with you at both ends of the spectrum. So I feel like it's one of the more versatile race day shoes.
The friendliest race day shoe.
I love that.
It's the friendliest race station.
That's going to be the new tagline. Run your way, the friendly way.
But here's something really cool about what you said, right? This sport, I would be so interested how many first-time marathoners are running Chicago Marathon on Sunday. And I think because of the conversation around footwear, the ability to find information, talk to individuals such as yourself. I mean, you guys with 3Run2 had how many people were at that shakeout run yesterday?
A few hundred.
I mean, the 312 threw a great party. That was more 3Run2 than it was Believe in the Run. But yeah,
great collab partners.
Yeah,
yes.
I would say that there was probably 300, 400 people. We're real excited about Saturday's run, which apparently we have over 1,000 people.
So I've heard.
Yeah, so we'll see. People RSVP. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we all show up. But
with that, I mean, however many people out of 50 some odd thousand people running, we know that they're going to find these types of products because they're race day shoes, they're marathon shoes, they're prevalent. Many people are buying them and wearing them, and they feel absolutely incredible. If we can give somebody their first marathon experience in an SC Elite and they absolutely love it because of maybe the things you specified, or it feels incredibly fast or comfortable on foot, that's awesome. That means we've done our job, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. I remember that one of your biggest fans for a while before he went straight up Nike was Ben Johnson, and he was throwing on the at that time the RC Elite. In the purple color and stuff like that.
That's the two.
That was a fantastic. That was the two. That was a fantastic color.
Yeah, and he was crushing those marathons. And the same point is, I ended up using it for a triathlon because I was like, I want something that feels like a race day, but I know that my legs are going to be trashed, and I just want something that will have the comfort, but still like that energetic race feel. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of that spectrum I'm talking about, where you get like Ben's a machine, can really crush, and I was a what would you call the opposite of that? The dawdler during the Ironman. It was a half Ironman. I don't want
Ironman.
Yeah, I don't want.
Which one? Which half Ironman?
I did two. I did Eagle Man.
Where's that one?
In Maryland, and then we did the Florida.
The only thing I can think about with Eagle Man is some It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference.
I know.
I'm sure there's just something.
By the way, we would get along really well on that. We watch those frequently.
On repeat. That is on repeat type.
Are you more
television.
of a day man?
Night man. Whoa.
All right, I think that's a good place to end this.
Please nobody clip that.
Oh, we're totally getting that.
Instant meme.
I'm going to send it to our friend Jen Scrimeni, who knows you pretty well.
She does.
Yeah, so I'll make sure that she gets a copy of that. But all right, Paul, thank you so much for coming on. We really love, and our audience seems to really love hearing the kind of like the behind the scenes of the shoes. In the past, it's been kind of like a curtain where we haven't gotten access to some of the decision making and the concepts that go into making a shoe, or the whys of the shoe. It's just like you get the shoe and it's like you either like it or you don't like it. But now, some of these brands are letting us talk to people like yourself, and it's really giving us a way to communicate these products better to the consumer, and I think it's probably really helpful for people to know the intention behind the shoe, so that when they put it on, they kind of have an idea of what that experience is going to be. I do love the idea that if you're looking at New Balance, Fresh Foam to me says daily, kind of like comfort, like leans more towards the comfort side of running versus the performance. You go to FuelCell and okay, FuelCell, these are the shoes that are built for performance, built for those, more effort runs, that kind of stuff. So I think you guys make it really clear that way. I do think it's tough sometimes getting all the 880s, 1080s,
This is quite an exit.
I'll just wrap it up then.
Well, at least what I'll say, not to add more seconds to this timer, is like, my job is to make sure that we're communicating this very clearly to the consumer. And so being able and having the opportunity and you guys inviting me to be able to talk about it is something that we just like really cherish and really love doing, because the heart of building this shoe, it starts with the consumer first, and then from there you start to get to a finished product. So being able to communicate that, whether it is with a shoe sitting right in front of us or hopping on and this amazing background, it's our most favorite thing to do.
Are we going to see you at the Shakeout?
You will.
Yes.
You will. Tomorrow. You're talking tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, guys.